My name is MaryAnn Barnett, and I'm owner-manager of Prairie House Kitchens, which is a distributor of Bosch products. Well, the name came about, I was called Bosch Kitchen Equipment, and that was sort of generic, so I decided to do Prairie House Kitchens. And I started getting in products. I started with the Bosch grain mill dehydrator, and then I gathered products that were good quality and everything to do with the kitchen or baking bread. And usually products that I use myself, so I know they're reliable. Well, this business is, I'm just into my 40th year. 39 years ago, I started at the Oyen Fair in the first week of August. So I did the farmer's market the other day, and it almost felt like sort of my first day of getting started 39 years ago. Yes, actually, I was born at Hannah. My dad had a ranch south of Hannah, and but he sold out and moved. I don't know, I must have been about 3, so we lived in different places around Alberta. So it seems kind of funny, I've made the big circle and I've come back, been back here for 49 years. So I'm kind of used to the special areas. Fell in love, I guess. I got married and came back, and my husband and I started on this farm. We rented to start with, and over the years we've bought land and we've raised our children here. They've all gone to school in Oyen. And so we're kind of a fixture of the special areas, I guess you could say. Being rural, well, one thing you know all your customers and families and generations. And well, it's been wonderful for me because I didn't have to drive to town for something to do. We do have to drive to Oyen to do all our shipping. In the early years when we started, Highway 9 used to stop here, and they'd drop off freight and then we'd ship. But we've seen every kind of freight system that you can imagine. And the way it's set up now, we take our freight and Purelator takes it. And we get the best service that we've ever had using Purelator or Canada Post. And we ship all over, mostly Western Canada. Oh, I have to think about that. I've sent to the Arctic. Quite a few people in the Arctic bake their own bread. I've sent to Nova Scotia, PEI. I've sent to Montana, and then Vancouver, like Vancouver Island. So I can't say for sure which one of those is the farthest. I think maybe it had been brewing for quite some time. I'd always grown a large garden and did a lot of freezing and canning. And in those years, we had the Home Economists, and one of the main offices was here in Oyen. So they had what was called Alberta Women's Week. And so through that, I was exposed to that and went to Olds. And the one year there was Dry, Save, and Like It. And I'd been hearing about dehydration. So that was how I got there. And so I thought, well, I'd get a dehydrator at some stage. And then there was a demonstration. I think it was maybe one of the first in Canada, grinding the wheat and using the Bosch and slicing everything for the dehydrator. And I thought, wow, that's pretty neat. And I always wanted a grain mill, having married a grain farmer. So it was kind of just sort of happened organically, I guess you could say. I think there was good cooks and bakers and gardeners in the family. So it was sort of natural. There again, in the first 10 years we were married at Esther, I was the convener for continuing education. And so you could phone them up and say, well, if someone wanted Chinese cooking, they'd phone SAIT and they'd come out with their chefs and all their pots and pans, and we'd have the full courses at Esther. So we did all of the European cooking, and then the bakers started coming. So we had all the bakers from SAIT, and whatever we wanted, if we wanted cinnamon buns or bread or desserts. So we had a series, and I took that to heart and I had all the notes, and I did a lot of baking and baking by hand. And so I think I learned quite a bit that way. And I probably have 300 cookbooks that I use as resource, and do watch a lot of cooking shows. And then you learn to do by doing. I've done hundreds of demonstrations, grinding the wheat and making the bread. And it seems like every time you do that, you learn something. And then I've been to the big food shows. I've been to San Francisco and New Orleans and New York. And so just talking to a lot of the people there, you always seem to pick up something, some tip. And then just the cookbooks, you go to cookbook presentations and you always pick up some tips. So over the years, you gather information and knowledge and hopefully skill. The biggest issue has been, well, time. You could use quite a few more hours in the day. But for me, it's finding enough people to work, or it's the bookkeeping, keeping the books up. If you're a salesperson or interested in demonstrations, you're usually not a book person. So I've taken quite a few of the courses that have been offered on Simply Accounting, which is now Sage, over the years, and kind of gone along with it, tried different things. Have a good accountant now, and they said they'll do the bookkeeping, which will take quite a bit of responsibility off your shoulders. It's just worrying that, oh gee, I guess I should have done that this month and I didn't get that done. So I would say having a bookkeeper. I think this area could use a traveling bookkeeper coming to different small businesses and helping them get that part done, and then they can really concentrate on their product and their sales. Our children working with us, as they got old enough and their driver's license, they would do the freight. And even when our second one, that's when I first started, I was doing a demonstration and got off on a tangent, I guess. And then I went to mix, and she said, "Oh, Mom, you forgot the yeast at 4." So I guess they've kind of learned a lot on cooking and baking along the way. And what I've really enjoyed is the families. Like there's some families, there's 4th generation that have bought Bosch's from me. It's pretty amazing. And to see people really cook and bake well and not have to work so hard doing it, I'd say that's been my proudest, not proud, but just it makes you feel good that, people have, I've gotten to know so many people that way, and families. I would say that's what I've enjoyed the most about the business. I always loved living out here, but it is a long ways from town. And I'd been the convener at the fair in Oyen, the food convener. And I just thought, well, this is kind of cool. I'm going to start demonstrating this. And I really didn't know what I was doing. I'd never even been to a Tupperware tea. I just started doing it. And it just led to this. Well, I would have to say in a good way. There's been lots of times that I've been too busy. The phone's ringing at meal times, and I didn't put much control in that. If the phone rang and it was an order, I hopped up and I grabbed the phone and I did the order. So I'm sure the girls probably thought at times, and my husband too, well, they just got used to it, I guess, and that was just part of it. But I don't do that anymore now. I sort of have a few boundaries now, and during mealtime, I don't answer the phone. It allowed the kids to have knowledge, and as they worked for me, I gave them a bit of an allowance, but I put the money away, so when they went to university, they had a little cushion to get started on. So I think that was one of the biggest bonuses. And they all went on to secondary education, so that was good. Pretty proud of that. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I maybe not work quite so many hours, but I don't think as an entrepreneur you can do that, because when you're getting a business going, it's like farming. You put the hours in when you have to, and I don't know. It just seemed like it was. I was sort of blind going into it, I think, but I must have had some kind of a background that clicked with me that I could make it work, I guess. And being determined helps a lot too. You have to have determination and belief in your product. I think those are my main things. I think be consistent. Your customers have to know where you are and how they can get a hold of you. And well, definitely, like really believe in your product and have product knowledge. And well, I attended as many conventions as I could to, you sort of with your own, well, mentored sort of by people that had been in the business or sort of in the same business, an exchange of ideas, I think is important. Well, I know now, I never had a business plan. And I know that's what really stress, try and have a business plan and financing in place. But I was always pretty careful as I opened my bank account, and as I made a little, I would put it in there and put it into stock. So I always had lots of stock here. So I started it pretty economically. So I guess it just depends what you're starting as an entrepreneur and how much financing or backup that you need. And you really need the support of your family and the understanding, because there's lots of times you'll be away. Like I would go away and do trade shows and fairs. Well, you're leaving that up to your spouse to take care of that part then, which in the end I think is good, because I think as a mom being away, the dad lots of times, especially a farming dad, maybe didn't spend that much time with the kids. Growing up, they would think, I guess, that that's the mom's duty or something. I don't know, but in this case, I think that Ron got to know the girls a lot better when he had to sort of be here on the weekend sometimes when I was away. Well, things have changed so much. I just did the farmers market, and I think the Alberta Open Farm Day is really a good idea, but it doesn't seem to be getting off the ground so much here. But I had everything there. And usually people, okay, this lady wanted a mill, this lady wanted a dehydrator. And I don't know if people are budgeting more for things, or it used to be, oh, that's what I want, and they would just get it, no problem. But I think now maybe they go home and they look on the internet and make sure they're getting the best price possible. And so it's the dynamics of doing business is so different. That's kind of what I'm at that point right now. And, using social media a lot more. And it's hard to learn all that. I don't know about for all of you young ones, you kind of grew with it, and I have used it quite a bit, but I find that it's almost changing every month. So you have to learn some new little thing. And if you don't use it a lot, you think, oh, how was I supposed to do that? Probably 40 years. I think I had that before I started my business. Limits exist only in one's mind. And never give up. That's the other one. That there's extra products available that they don't realize. And I do a lot of special orders. Like even people starting a business, I have really good, like knives. Like if they're starting a kitchen business, I have really good pots and pans, like commercial pots and pans, and knives and cutting blocks. I just wish that more people would think to call me. I may not have it here, but I know where to get it or to order it.